was on septic shock, so workup was done. So initially presentation was pancytopenia. So initial infectious workup, which all were negative. So we proceeded for bone marrow trophine, which was showing increasing of phagocytic activity. So we have proceeded for the strong suspicion of HLH. We have get through all the markers which are specific for HLH. So she was fitting on all the criterias. So as this, we have labeled her on labeled her with the diagnosis of HLH, and we have started her on dexamethasone initially. So on that she responded well, but again she presented after within week with severe pancytopenia. So at a time we have started her on HLH specific therapy, which is that modified HLH 2004 protocol, to which she responded well, and we have decided her on transplant because when meanwhile when we were proceeded for all the workup, we have sent the mutations which were positive for her, which is mainly positive for the primary or the inherited HLH. So for us, this was really a very rare case that we have seen in our that in experience period, that a patient with this 39 years of age, and she presented with this hemophagocytic syndrome and the gene mutation, that is STXB2, which is mainly found in primary and familial HLH, which was positive for her.
Right. So, what is the conclusion that you draw from your this case?
That we should not miss the genetic mutations even in elderly patients. We should go for these mutations so that we can treat her accordingly. As we know that a primary HLH in elderly patients, they would not respond to the HLH 94, HLH 2004 protocol, which is only the chemotherapy. They will relapse again. So we need to transplant that patients. So early identification by gene mutation is really necessary.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Dr. Kanta Devi, second poster, she has reported a case of the curious case of HLA-DR positive acute promyelocytic leukemia. Ji, Dr. Kanta.
Okay, ma'am. So she was 32-year female, which was presented to us with a history of fever and abdominal pain. At that time, the workup was done, which was showing there was a picture of acute leukemia. Initial presentation, her counts were high with 82% blood cells. The peripheral film was used, which was showing the faggot cells. So we have sent the flow cytometry for the further confirmation on the peripheral blood, which was showing the picture of acute myeloid leukemia, HLA-DR and CD34 were negative. So so on the strong suspicion on the basis of morphology, although she has no at presentation, she had no any symptom of acute coagulopathy or bleeding diastasis, but the parameters like D-dimer and fibrinogen, they were in favoring of coagulopathy, but actively she was not bleeding at all. So we have on the strong suspicion of that parameters and the presentation of the faggot cell on peripheral film, we have sent the mutation that is the most common mutation that we are doing here in our setup, that was PML-RARA mutation by PCR, which turned to be positive. So we have started her on the basis of her high risk stratification on induction chemotherapy, that is 3+7, including daunorubicin and cytarabine along with ETRA, which is for the most for the PML-RARA mutation.
Okay. So, what is your conclusion?
Sorry.
What is your
conclusion?
What is your conclusion?
My conclusion is that APL can be presented even if the flow cytometry is showing negativity of CD34 and HLA-DR, and they should be managed as a APL directed therapy so that patient can respond well.
Right. Thank you so much.
Then next poster is of Dr. Khatija Bano. She is doing her FCPS medicine from Shifa International Hospital, Islamabad, and her topic is systemic IgA-AH amyloidosis. Ji, Dr. Khatija Bano.
Me? She's not there.
Not there? Okay. Next, Dr. Khatija Ejaz. She is resident hematologist, the Indus Hospital, Karachi, and her topic is distribution of subtypes and immunophenotypic characterization of 1379 cases of pediatric acute leukemia.
Assalamu alaikum.
जी, वालेकुम अस्सलाम खतीजा।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम। जी खतीजा, जरा बताएंगी, कैन यू टेल अस what study, what is the objective of your study?
This was a retrospective study conducted at hematology section of clinical laboratories at Indus Hospital, and our aim of the study was to report the subtypes of childhood acute leukemia, antigen profile, and their aberrant antigen expression according to our demographics. Total 1379 cases of de novo acute leukemia from 1st January 2012 to 31st December 2017 were included. Among these, 80% were diagnosed by using 4-color flow cytometry, 9% and 11% via immunohistochemistry on bone marrow to find biopsy samples and morphological examination respectively.
Right. So what were your results?
Sorry.
What were your results? Can you share your results with us?
Statistical analysis performed using SPSS version 24. Numbers with percentages were used for discrete variables. And 1 minute, please.
Can you tell us what are the results that you have shared in the table and in the diagrams,
Yes.
figures?
The immunophenotypes of total 1379 cases were analyzed. Mean age of the patients was 7.6 plus minus 4.3 years, and male to female ratio was 1.7 to 1. Phenotype was consistent with ALN in 77% and AML in 21%. The remaining were 2% were mixed phenotype and unclassifiable. Among the ALL, 80% showed B and 19.6% showed T cell lineage. AML with maturation was most common subtype of non-promyelocytic AML. And
Right. So what was the बताएं.
What was your question?
So what are your conclusions from the study?
Conclusion was overall immunophenotypic profile, expression of aberrant phenotypes and distribution subtypes in our patient is concordant to international published literature. But apart from relatively high frequency of TLL in our data, we have high frequency of TLL.
चलो ठीक चले, thank you so much.
Dr. Kainat Ilyas, her topic is Investigations of Hereditary Thrombophilia in Women with Recurrent Fetal Loss. She's available now. She's doing her MPhil Hematology from Liaquat University of Medical and Health Sciences, Jamshoro, Pakistan. Dr. Kainat.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
वालेकुम सलाम. जी डॉक्टर कायनात, आपका नंबर 8 पोस्टर है.
जी मैम. On investigation of hereditary thrombophilia in women with recurrent fetal loss.
Right. So can you tell us what was the objective of your study?
Sorry ma'am, what's your question?
What was the objective of your study?
Yes ma'am, objective of my study is to evaluate the role of antithrombin, protein C, protein S and factor V Leading in recurrent pregnancy loss, and to compare the cause of the hereditary thrombophilia among women with recurrent pregnancy loss.
So what were the tests that you performed to identify
Ma'am, for these factors, we performed protein C and protein S for antithrombin and factor V Leading.
What were your results?
Results in our study. In my study, we take 60 patients of recurrent pregnancy loss, and among these, 19 patients have factor V Leading positive, while in 12 patients protein C was positive and protein S was found in about 3 patients, and there is no antithrombin in any patient.
ठीक है, चलें. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Then Dr. Rabel Yokio. He is He is resident hematology from Liaquat University of Medical and Health Sciences, Jamshoro, and his topic is clinical diagnostic spectrum of inherited bleeding disorders, a study from interior part of Sindh, Larkana.
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum assalam.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
जी राबेल, आप अपना इंट्रोडक्शन देंगी अपनी स्टडी का?
Ji, ma'am. Ma'am, introduction is that as concerned to this topic, that inherited bleeding disorder, that I wanted to see that clinical and its diagnostic spectrum in the interior part of Sindh. So these inherited bleeding disorders are becoming more common in interior side too, as per as knowledge, concern and resources. So first, these patients were neglected. So these are coming into knowledge for their treatment as well.
So what was the method, material and methods?
My material and methods were that total 29 patients were enrolled in this study. This is a retrospective study that is conducted from July 2019 to October 2020. And total 29 patients were enrolled in this study. And ma'am, the patients of inherited bleeding disorders which were registered, that were taken into this study.
Right. So what was the conclusion?
Some conclusion is that a most common inherited bleeding disorder that was seen is the hemophilia, that was comprising of 75%. That was followed by von Willebrand disease. Their patients was four patients were of the von Willebrand disease, comprising of 14%, followed by factor 5 deficiency, 4%, and factor 13 deficiency, that was of 7% in this study.
ठीक है, चलो ठीक है. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, ma'am. Last word.
Next poster is of Dr. Numan Anjum Rana. He is resident hematology, A5P Rawalpindi, and his topic is assessment of response of induction chemotherapy in childhood acute lymphoblastic leukemia and its correlation with cytogenetic and molecular features. Ji, Dr. Numan. Poster number 15.
Yes, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. You, Numan, can you share with us what was the objective of your study?
Ma'am, objective is to assess the effect of cytogenetic abnormalities on induction therapy. As we know that response to induction is one of the important prognostic factors in ALL. Early response gives a good prognostic value. So this study was aimed to assess response on induction chemotherapy in correlation with cytogenetic and molecular changes.
Right. So can you describe a little the three figures that you have shared with us?
Ma'am, this was a prospective study on children aged from 1 to 12 years old. I had 250 cases in 6 months. The most common cytogenetic abnormalities were hyperdiploidy and normal karyotype, followed by BCR-ABL gene. And in my study, madam, the hyperdiploidy and normal karyotype, their prognostic value were independent of other prognostic factors, including age, TLC at presentation, and immunophenotype of the disease. They had 100% remission, and Philadelphia had 25% remission in my study.
Right. So can you conclude your findings then again?
Ma'am, again, I will conclude that these cytogenetic changes were independent prognostic factors in assessing or predicting response to predicting response to the induction chemotherapy.
ठीक हो गया, चलिए. Thank you so much.
And I'm welcome.
Dr. Sumaira Abbasi. Is she available? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
A resident clinical hematology from Liaquat University of Medical and Health Sciences, Jamshoro, and her topic is to assess level of D dimers in COVID-19 positive ICU admitted patients at Hyderabad. D. Dr. Sumaira.
Yes, ma'am.
Ji, Sumaira, can you tell us what was the objective of your study?
Yes, ma'am. The objective of my study is to determine the level of D dimers in the COVID-19 patients admitted in ICU.
Ji, can you share with us what was your methods?
Yes, ma'am. Method is So, ma'am, the duration of the study is 3 months. Study setting was the Department of Hematology and LIMS, Chamcheru. Inclusion criteria was the patients who were diagnosed case of COVID-19 on the PCR, while the exclusion is the patients who were negative for the COVID-19 on PCR. Data collection procedure was the clinical laboratory confirmation of the COVID-19, and the citrate sample were taken and processed in the Cobas 6000 autoanalyzer for the D-dimers.
What were your results?
Yes, ma'am. My result was the 58 patients were admitted in the ICU. Only 50 were participated in this study. So mean age was 45, male were 37 and female were 13. Out of them, 15 patients were hypertensive, 26 were hypertensive as well as diabetes mellitus, and 9 patients haven't any comorbidity. So level of the D-dimer were seen about 20% patient shows more than 2 milligram per liter level of the D-dimers, while in the 52% of the patients the level of D-dimer were between 0.5 to 2 less than 2 milligram per liter, while in 28% of the patients less than 0.5 milligram per liter.
ठीक है, चलें ठीक है.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Can you conclude your findings?
Yes, ma'am. My conclusion was that rest D-dimer was seen in both male and female admitted in ICU. High level of D-dimer seen, which was the more than 2 milligram per liter in severely ill patients, and mostly presenting complaint was the difficulty in breathing.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am. You are welcome.
Next poster is of Dr. Poonam Devi. She is resident hematology, the Indus Hospital, Karachi, and her topic is prevalence of malaria infection and its impact on complete blood count parameters.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum salam. जी पूनम, आपका क्या नंबर है आपके इसका?
हेलो
जी
जी
जी पूनम, आप बताइए, अपना इंट्रोड्यूस कीजिए टॉपिक.
जी, my topic was on prevalence of malaria infection and its impact on complete blood parameters.
जी, अपने बताइएगा मेथड्स.
Yeah, method was this is the retrospective study which sought to assess the hematological indices of all samples received to be tested for malaria parasite infection from January 2019 to December 2020 at the Indus Hospital, Karachi. The data retrieved included results of the CBC, MP slide microscopy, and MP ICT. Hematological analysis is done by Sysmex XN1000 automated hematology analyzer. Parasitologic study analysis is carried out by the preparation of Leishman staining thick and thin blood smears, rapid diagnostic test.
ठीक है जी. Can you share the results with us?
Yeah. Yes, results are patients were mean age was 30 in Vivex, Plasmodium vivex, and in falciparum malaria it was mean age was 41, and in mixed infection the age was mean age was 31.8 and p value was 0.5. In vivex malaria Plasmodium vivex hemoglobin was 11.7, and in falciparum malaria mean hemoglobin 10.5.
How many cases of falciparum and how many cases of vivex did you identify?
Yeah, vivex were 95.7% and falciparum was 4%.
4%.
And mixed infection were also 4%.
Right. So what is the conclusion that you draw?
Study patients who were positive for malaria were mostly adult population, and also male predominance. There was the male predominance that was 1.2 ratio 1, and had low hemoglobin and platelet level compared to the unaffected individuals. When these hematological changes are used in combination with other clinical indicators and the microscopy, the malaria diagnosis and treatment could be improved.
Right. ठीक है जी. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Poonam. Next presenter, Dr. Sumaira Sheikh. Is she available? ठीक है. She's a resident clinical hematology at the Indus Hospital, Karachi, and her topic, she has two posters. Number one poster topic is correlation of C-reactive protein and total leukocyte count in acute infections, a single center study.
First, Dr. Aisha, I'll correct you. I'm consultant hematologist at the Indus Hospital, Karachi.
Okay, sorry.
I think it's
Consultant
typographical error.
hematologist. Okay, sorry. He's consultant hematologist at Indus Hospital.
Yes.
ठीक है, तो
Yes, doctor.
तो मेरा introduce what was the objective of your study?
Yes, this study was done at the Zaudin Hospital in the 2017. In this study, we correlate the TLC and the CRP in the acute infections. We include the patients who presented with the fever and where the antibiotic, before the antibiotic. Okay, we took the initial test for the CRP and the TLC counts, and we compare in this study for the cross positive correlation. This is actually the positive correlation between these. We found in this study that these two parameters were positively correlated in acute infection.
Right. So, what is your conclusion?
Yes, and this we conclude as per in the other studies we found in the internationally. This study is also correlate with the most of the international studies that these CRP and the TLC are the both markers or the infectivity markers for the infections. So we found in our study, we took 100 patients and we found similar results at around 93%. We found the positive correlation between these two parameters. If TLC is raised and the CRP becomes raised. Thank you.
ठीक है जी, thank you so much, thank you.
Dr. Sumaira, next poster topic is relapsed childhood B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia and its association with prognostic factors.
Yes, this is again on my post. This study is presented in the Indus Hospital, Karachi. Now I'm at the consultant in the Indus Hospital, Karachi. We took the relapsed cases of the BLL lymphoblastic leukemia and we correlate with their prognostic factors. Around 67 patients, we took the patients.
Right. So what were your methods? What did you do with the patients that you identified?
This is only the correlation. We took the retrospective, all the variables of the prognostic factor, and we took compare with the initial TLC presentation at the time of the diagnosis, and certain fish markers like BCR, ABL, AMLL, and the TATL, AML, which were performed in the Indus Hospital at that time, and we also took the CNS status at that time and the relapse MRD status after the induction therapy. What were the MRD status in these patients, and we also compare the relapse between the treatment or after the treatment, how many patients were relapsed and the most common site which one. Then in this study we found that around the most commonly we seen that 43% of the patients were more than 10 years of the age, which is the high risk parameter, and around the 57% of the people TLC were more than 50,000. And we found that MRD were positive around the 54% of the patients. In this patient is again the high risk, and this we found that. And we see in the study that the most common site were the bone marrow. The bone marrow relapse is most common than the CNS relapse. Around 14% were found for the CNS relapse. However, 81% of the peoples were presented at the site bone marrow. He relapsed the bone marrow.
ठीक है जी. Thank you so much, Dr. Sumaira.
Thank you, Dr. Sumaira. Next presenter is Dr. Fahim Ahmed Memon. He is a resident clinical hematology, Jamshoro, Pakistan, Liaquat University of Medical and Health Sciences, Jamshoro, Pakistan, and his topic is pre-donation deferral of blood donors, a single center study.
Hello, जी, Dr. Fahim, are you online?
Yes, I am online. My voice is coming.
Ji, Dr.
Acha.
Fahim, good.
Dr. Fahim, can you tell us what was the objective of your study?
My study objective was to determine the frequency of various causes of reasons for deferral of blood donors and to investigate the quantity of losses due to the deferred donors.
Great. So, can you tell us what was your results?
Our result shows that there are various causes for that. Mostly the main cause was the anemia. Mostly when the patient came there, the donors came, there was anemia, then was weight loss, and then there was age factors above the 40 years, and then the PPIs, the hepatitis A, B, HIV, malaria. These were the main causes.
Right. So, can you conclude the findings of your study?
Yes, the deferral rate at our center was much higher than the studies reported, especially in our neighboring countries and other centers. Analysis of rejection patterns may help medical personnel to be more focused in donor screening. So we have to see the what are the main causes of the temporary and the temporary donors, so we can diminish our supply in the future donors.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fahim.
What happened? Some signal problem?
Do we have any other participant waiting?
Yes. Next participant is Dr. Khatija Bano. Khatija Bano, she has done her FCPS medicine, and she is a medical specialist in Shifa International Hospital, Islamabad, and her topic is systemic IgA amyloidosis.
Assalamualaikum.
Okay, Khatija.
Assalamualaikum.
Ji, walaikum salam, Dr. Khatija.
Assalamualaikum. This is Dr. Khadija.
Ji, we can hear you, Dr. Khatija.
Can you hear me? This is Dr. Khadija.
Yes, yes.
Ji, Dr. Khadija, can you tell us something about the studies that you have shared with us on the poster?
Yes, it was a case report. Actually, he was a patient who was 58 years old, and he presented to OPD with 3 years history of abdominal pain. So he was very thoroughly investigated for that abdominal pain, and on investigation he had microcytic anemia, and his peripheral film showed Rolex formation. His creatinine was deranged, it was 1.95, and in his LFTs other parameters were normal, but his alkaline phosphatase was raised and it was 767. When his imaging of abdomen was done, his CT scan showed hepatosplenomegaly with multiple enlarged lymph nodes in different areas. Because he had microcytic anemia and his creatinine was deranged, there was for his anemic workup at this age, his SPEP was also done, which showed a paraprotein, and on immunofixation it was found to be IgA. Because he had multiple enlarged lymph nodes, so his bone marrow, so his lymph node biopsy was also done, which was consistent with amyloidosis. His liver biopsy was done, which was also suggestive of amyloidosis, and his bone marrow biopsy was also done, which was consistent with amyloid and polyclonal increase in plasma cell. The reason why I presented this case is that first of all, this heavy chain amyloidosis is very rare in our setup, and secondly, that the presentation of this patient was a very vague presentation. Usually the patients with amyloid do not present with this long history of only abdominal pain. And thirdly, whenever we have raised alkaline phosphatase in the investigation of the patient, we should keep this amyloid in our differential diagnosis.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khatija. Next presenter is Mohammad Bilal Asghar. He is resident hematology, A5P Rawalpindi, and his topic is diagnostic accuracy of immature platelet fractions, to differentiate between thrombocytopenia due to peripheral destruction versus marrow failure. जी डॉक्टर बिलाल असगर.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम मैम.
वालेकुम सलाम.
जी वालेकुम. Dr. Bilal, will you tell us something about the objective of your study?
Yes, ma'am. This was the study conducted at Armed Forces Institute of Pathology over the last 1 year. Madam, in this study we use XN 3000, which is a Sysmex machine, to get the levels of immature platelet fractions. These are like reticulocytes for platelets. But these in this study, I tried to try to make a conclusion that if we use the immature platelet fractions, we can use immature platelet fractions to differentiate the cause of thrombocytopenia, which can either be due to peripheral destruction or bone marrow failure. The values of IPF that were obtained in my study were raised in case of peripheral destruction, whereas they were less raised in case of bone marrow failures. And in case of normal patients, these values were within normal limits. So according to the study, this immature platelet fraction, this can be done on peripheral blood, so it can be a good marker of bone marrow functioning. We can use this as a less invasive procedure, because normally when we have to assess the bone marrow function, we have to go for a bone marrow which is a cumbersome and it is not very patient friendly. So we can assess the bone marrow functions through this IPF at peripheral blood.
ठीक है, चलें, ठीक है. Thank you so much, Dr. Bilal.
Thank you.
Next presenter is Dr. Nabila Rafiq. She is resident clinical hematology, AFBMTC, NIBMT, Rawalpindi, and her topic is long-term outcome of beta thalassemia major patients post allogenic hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. जी Dr. Nabila.
Assalamu alaikum.
Can
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
जी.
you.
Dr. Bilal, can you tell us what was the objective of your study?
Yes, madam. I'm Dr. Nabila Rafiq, resident at Armed Forces Bone Marrow Transplant Center, and the main objective of my study is basically to determine the post-transplant outcome of beta thalassemia patients in terms of overall survival and disease-free survival. I have also determined the frequency of post-transplant complications in terms of acute GVHD and hemorrhagic cystitis. My study basically conducted at Armed Forces Bone Marrow Transplant Center, and it included data from October 2001 till April 2020. Out of 309 beta thalassemia patients who underwent hematopoietic stem cell transplant at Armed Forces Bone Marrow Transplant Center, we classified them as per Pizarro risk classification in class 1, 10% patients in class 1, and 28% in class 2, and 62% in class 3. And we made the overall survival, which was 77.7% overall survival in beta thalassemia patients, and which was quite better in class 1 and class 2, that is 81.3%, as compared to class 3, that is 75.5%. Similarly, we studied the disease-free survival in beta thalassemia post-transplantation, which was about 65.7%, and it was quite high in class 1 and class 2 Pizarro group as compared to class 3. The acute GVHD incidence frequency was seen in 122 patients, and hemorrhagic cystitis were observed in 33% patients out of 309 patients. And I would like to conclude my study. It showed that overall survival and thalassemia-free survival in class 1 and class 2 beta thalassemia patient is significantly high as compared to class 3 risk groups, and these results are comparable to the international data. And so bone marrow transplant is in beta thalassemia major is quite a reasonable treatment option, considering improved overall survival and disease-free survival.
ठीक है, Dr. Nabila, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Dr. Intezar Ali. He's a resident hematology FIP Rawalpindi, and his topic is the hematological parameters in patients of COVID-19. Poster number है इनका 5.
5. जी.
जी डॉक्टर इंतजार.
जी, Dr. Intezar.
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, we can hear you.
जी, वालेकुम अस्सलाम. So, can you tell us what was the objective of your study?
Ma'am, the objective of my study is to compare the clinical sign and symptoms of the COVID patients and to relate them with the hematological parameters. I use different symptoms like fever, headache, body aches, and the rare symptoms like the insomnia, then loss of taste and smell sensation, and diarrhea, vomiting. And then I compared these signs and symptoms of the patient with the hematological parameters. I used two parameters, lymphocytes, and second is the thrombocytes. And I compare these signs and symptoms in those patients who were symptomatic. So I compare these signs and symptoms with the hematological parameters of COVID patients who were symptomatic.
Right. So what did you conclude?
Hello, ma'am.
Ji. So what was the conclusion of your study? Hello.
Ma'am, conclusion of my study was there was consistent leukopenia and thrombocytopenia in symptomatic patients of the COVID-19. And there were in all of my patients, fever and leukopenia was the most consistent finding.
Good.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Intezar. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Now we have three presenters left. Dr. Anam Salim, is he available? No. Dr. Maria Muzaffar Sheikh and Dr. Mehwish Imam Khushk. Acha.
We can conclude the session, no problem.
Yes.
अभी we cannot wait.
जी, I think we should do that.
जी 3 रह गए मेरे ख्याल है डॉक्टर साहब तो वो
17 e-posters हो गए हैं और 3 are left, but they are not available. 3 candidates. All posters are very well presented, and we have learned a lot from all these posters. The prize will be announced tomorrow, and that's all for the e-poster session.
We are very grateful for all the participants and for participating in this conference and putting in a lot of effort in making the posters. I know a lot of money and effort and time goes into it, and we really appreciate efforts of all the residents and consultants for this purpose. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.